Well, the world is a dumpster fire. Nothing here makes sense. And you vacillate to the crippling fear of constant self-defense. And nothing's right and nothing's good. And you're paralyzed with grief. Don't kill yourself, just have a cup of coffee.
Welcome to Coffee Over Suicide, the dramedy podcast about mental illness and choosing life over death one cup of coffee at a time. I'm your host, Chris Parker Howard. And on this Friday edition of the show, we have got a business owner, DJ, guitar slinger, among other things. But we'll get into that in a minute. Before I introduce today's guest, I want to ask you a question. How many of you participated in the Wednesday challenge? You can be honest. We're all friends here. It's okay. Whether you did or you didn't, I'm just happy you're here today. Because today is the day that you embrace the power of change. That's right. You can do it just like that. You don't have to go through some big, giant ordeal. You don't have to justify your reasoning for wanting to change, for hoping that things change, for feeling different today than you felt yesterday. You can give yourself permission, moment to moment, second by second, day to day, year to year, to change. It's all up to you. You have complete control to change your mind about how you feel about any given circumstance. How amazing is that? The fact that you can literally stop on a dime and decide, I'm going to do something different today and take an emotional risk. And then I'm going to figure out if it was worth it. And if it wasn't, I get another chance to do it right. And if it was, congratulations. You figured something out. Now what? It gets real exciting to know that you can start making some changes in your life. To know that you actually have the power to affect yourself and the world around you, your perception of the world around you. You can make decisions about how you feel about the things that you're seeing. You can tell yourself a whole other story about how you feel and literally change how you feel. It doesn't always work. That's the caveat. But man, when it does, there's nothing better than that. I was having a rough day today. Not only did I not get a lot of sleep, which is something I promise that I am trying to get better about. But I've got a lot of stressful things going on right now, and as much as I understand this power of change that I talk about, this power of perception that I talk about, I'm resistant to those things at first. I'm a little slow when it comes to that stuff, so it takes me a little while to come around. And you would think, knowing that about myself, I'd be able to change that too. And maybe I can. Maybe I can. Now, today on the show, we have got a fantastic conversation with Joshua Moyer. He's a father. In fact, his kids pop up a couple of times in the episode, and it's adorable. So if you're one of those people that has an aversion to cute things, there's going to be a couple of spots where this is going to be hard for you. But the rest of it, we get into the marrow of it. And I really love this conversation, and I really love this guy and his whole family. So, without further ado, let's talk to Josh Moyer.
a little late in the day over here on the East Coast for me to have coffee. So
Oh, yeah.
So forgive me for that part.
It's late for me too, but I'm problematic. So
if I'm playing a gig, I'm pounding coffee all day long. But if I'm like regular work weekish, I got to shut it off after a certain point.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
What instrument do you play?
I always joke that I play whatever you're going to pay me to play. No, typically I sing and play guitar. I do a lot of solo stuff, and we have this Dave Matthews tribute band. But, over the years, I've been doing music for about 20 some years, which is enough. That's plenty.
Yeah.
I'm kind of over it. But, I've done all kinds of different stuff. But, yeah, typically, like, if I'm doing it, it's vocals and guitar. Yeah.
Well, and Dave Matthews is definitely not known for being slouchy on the guitar department.
No, but it's weird, though.
Yeah.
Like, you're not shredding. You're not, like, playing, like, Steve Vai or anything like that. Like, you're not, like, a shred guy. You're just playing these weird chord voicings with weird hand shapes and stuff like that. But, no, I just took one of my sons to see him 2 or 3 weeks ago. So it was his first show to see him live, and he was just blown away. He's 9,
Nice.
so he was like, I said, so these are, the company I work for, we spend a lot of money with iHeartRadio, so they got us the tickets. I told them, I said, not every concert's going to be like this. Sometimes you're going to have to like walk from your parking spot, and slum it in the field or whatever you want to,
Oh yeah.
however it goes. So I said, you can't just like drive up and walk in normally. It's not a typical situation. So
when did you first start playing music?
Oh boy, whoa, my shit's falling apart. Sorry. See that? Long time ago, man. I went to college and grad school for it, but I was playing. That was kind of like my only like interest, for the longest, forever, for as long as I can remember. Of course, now as I kind of grown up and grown older and experienced the world a little bit, I realize there's a lot more to life than music, not that that's not important by any means. I don't mean to make it sound like that, but
no, but you have to find other things in your sphere. Otherwise, you're just going to stagnate as a person. You can't hang all of your hopes on everything because, if something doesn't work out, you've kind of given all of your power as a human being over to something else.
Yeah, I agree completely. And like I'm turning 40 next month, and I was just talking to someone about this yesterday. They said, "Oh, do you get paid?" Because I had played a gig. Oh, I had to play a gig yesterday afternoon. That's what it was. So I was at church, and I was like, "Yeah, I got to go home and like load my gear and bounce, and I have to play this brewery and stuff." And the lady's just nice lady. She said, "Oh, do you get paid well for that?" I said, "Yeah, I get paid okay for it." She said, "Well, you'd probably do it for free even if you didn't." I said, "No, I wouldn't." I said, "No, I would not. Not at this point in the game." Like, I enjoy playing and stuff, but the business side of it never gets easier.
No.
And no matter what field you're in, no matter what you're doing with your life, there's going to be difficult people. There's going to be crappy days and whatnot. But like the business side of making music and booking gigs and like promoting your music and all that stuff and making sure people show up to your shows, like it just never gets easier. It just never gets easier. One
of the things that I've found, and maybe you can relate to this too. One of the things that that I noticed is that as I get older and as I get more proficient at instruments and playing them and songwriting and everything, it's actually become more difficult for me to write songs anymore because I feel like something that I probably would have enjoyed 5 years ago, I hear it in my own head now, and I immediately dismiss it as lazy.
And you get super self-critical because you play drums in a band, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And I also think too, one of my very best friends here in Winston-Salem. He's actually plays lead guitar with me in the band. He's a single guy. He has a dog. I mean, he's still working. He's hustling. He's playing gigs. But like, he posts these wonderful, grandiose thought processes on social media, and I think to myself, man, I wish I had time to think like that. Like I wish I could have time to let my brain, kind of remunerate on thoughts of that nature. I remember, I used to just sit and pontificate and read all the time and have stacks of books. And I mean, I work full time, I gig full time. I have 4 kids. I have a 5th baby who's about to pop out any second. So I'm just busy, man. And
that's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot. I mean, it's not unmanageable. I think people say, how do you do it? Well, you do it.
Yeah.
I'm very utilitarian. Like 100%. People do what they have to do.
Yeah. I mean, you are a goldfish. You will adapt to the size of your tank.
Right.
If you allow yourself to. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I got a couple of kids, and that was a lot. But I mean, I inherited one with my wife, and so now I got 3 kids, and it's just how it works out. It's like you just adjust. It's part of the process. It's like any other thing where it requires you to show up as a person. You just kind of have to know whether or not you're the kind of person who can show up, and sometimes you don't know that until you're forced to.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I was never the type of person that I thought, I didn't think I was going to live past 30, 35, whatever, let alone, be a dad or anything like that. And I was, I just get that a lot doing what, of course, playing music and being a dad and stuff like that. Like, I'm like, it's not like I'm fighting a war in Palestine or like splitting an atom at CERN or something like that. I'm like, I'm just working and being a dad. That's not like crazy. People do it all the time. It's not like a ridiculous situation that I'm being put into. It's just, I just think people's perception is interesting. Especially, I mean, here in North Carolina is a totally different landscape of what I'm sure you experience out there. But it's just like it's just interesting. I mean, I grew up in Pennsylvania. I grew up outside of Philadelphia, so. It's just different.
But those are very different flavors.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The tri-state area is 100% different than anywhere down here.
Yeah.
You're just used to a different speed and different way of talking to people, and even like a different walking. Like I get so annoyed like walking behind people in just on the street or in the grocery store. I'm like, can you please speed up? Like what in the world? I don't know, man.
Well, I mean, there's that sense of urgency. That maybe not everybody feels. Right.
It's all the biscuits and gravy.
That'll slow you right down.
Jim Gaffigan puts it very well. It's like eating, paste. You're just they just slow people down. He has a great bit about it. I won't try to recreate it, but it's
well, I mean, you got a stomach full of wallpaper. It's like
absolutely wallpaper paste. Exactly what it is. Yeah, totally. Yeah, man.
So you were saying a second ago, like that, you didn't know if you were going to even survive into 30. I mean, what was the let's say the instance for you? Was it were you a drugs guy or were you a sad guy?
No, I definitely wasn't a drugs guy. I was a sad guy and I was a party guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I was a drinker and I still try to mitigate that. It's just something that's conscious. I'm always trying to like keep that, at a reasonable place.
Yeah, me too.
And, no, I mean, I kind of like, I grew up in a weird house, man. And like the second I got out of that house and I went to college, I was in college about 10 minutes before like, I was like the definition of wide open. I'm like, oh, we can do this here? Like game freaking on, man. Like we're just like, woo, and that very, very quickly and very intensely became my identity, and I've always suffered with what's called suicidal ideation.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not always at the forefront, and it's not an immediate what's the word I'm looking for? It's not an immediate crisis.
Yeah.
But it's still always there.
Yes.
Right?
Completely.
I always like to, and you probably can speak on this too. I always talk about it like it's kind of an itch that's kind of like, some days it's like 10 feet away and some days it's like a foot away.
Yeah.
But it's always there, right? And it's never anything I've acted upon, but it's a thought process that's been with me for the longest time.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I was late 20s, early 30s until like I found a psychiatrist like, dude, this is what you like. You have this.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, really? I thought I was just like a melodramatic, like, woe is me. Like, I'm going to.
Well, you were an artist.
Well, that's exactly like kind of what I defined myself as. Like, oh, I'm this troubled artist and blah, 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 and all that bullshit, you know?
Yeah, completely.
and that's exactly what it is. Because you see so many of these artists, so many people who go through that and come through on the other side are stone cold sober and creating some of the best things they've ever created.
Absolutely.
You know?
That's an interesting thing about that, though, is that when you see someone who's struggling with suicidal tendencies or depression or something like that, and you're a teenager, and then you see, Kurt Cobain up on the stage,
right?
Being very frank and very open about depression and things like that. You're like, oh, there's somebody out there who's making this normal. I'm that. But the downside to that is that it doesn't get the other piece of it, which is, yes, you may be that. But the problem is you're both fucked up and you're not going to learn anything from each other at that point other than you're not alone. But there's a whole other step after that, which is, now that I know that, what do I do with it? How do I fix it? How do I manage it? How do I take care of it and survive myself?
Right.
And Cobain's a good example because he didn't.
Absolutely. I mean, you could go down the whole list. Cobain, Chris Cornell, Chester, which hit me like a ton of bricks, Robbie Williams, all these people. And I think I have found, now, this may be kind of a more glum way to look at it, but the more you realize that you may never be able to fix it, the more you realize that you have to learn how to manage it.
Oh, 1,000%.
It might never go away. Yeah. Right? I mean, you might live with it your entire life. So the way you figure out, like, I always call it my spiral. I'm too big of a Nine Inch Nails fan, so that's what I call it. Like, when I get like in this like weird like toilet bowl situation, I'm like, okay, like, what is going on? How can I kind of shimmy back up this ladder, because it's just getting dark, Yeah. And my wife and I mean, we've had two very different experiences, and I think that's the beauty of like when two people come together, they share stuff, and you find that there are a lot more similarities and differences than a lot of people. We've had a lot of very different upbringings, but we've really had to deal with losing people. Both my parents passed away very young from health stuff, not from mental health things, but we've lost people. We lost her sister to suicide, which I think I mentioned in my initial little post to you. And then my best friend, not a year. Oh, we're going on a year ago, drank himself to death, which is not directly termed a suicide, but I mean,
but let's
call a spade a spade. When you're not seeking, when you're not accepting the help that's given to you, and they always say, some people say alcoholism is a choice. Well, yeah, alcoholism is a choice. You choose whether to have that first drink or not, because after that first drink, you don't have a choice after that.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, my father's an alcoholic, so he got to the point where he overcame it, and just doesn't drink because he can't. He's like, I can't have a drink. I have to have all the drinks.
Right.
That's just how it goes. I'm not one of those people that can just pay attention to it and be careful.
Right.
Luckily,
Right.
I'm one of those people who can pay attention to it and be careful. But since I know I have it in me, I really am careful about it. It makes me nervous.
And you have to be. And I think too,
because alcohol's crazy.
it's ridiculous. And I think too, in the certain industry that you're in, like you play drums in a band.
Yeah.
When you're in music, like it's a whole other ball game. And like some people think, oh yeah, no, like you're just saying that. No, it's true.
Yeah.
It's freaking everywhere. It's
is.
everywhere you are. You never have to pay for it. Like it's just a different. It's a whole different scenario. Like,
yeah.
You're like, oh yeah, so you just open whatever. Yeah, sure, okay, fine. Like, let's go.
Yeah.
And
if you're not a person who's fully in control of yourself, because the thing is this. I mean, you mentioned about your friend, and I'm obviously definitely sorry to hear that, because the thing about a situation like that, it's an undiscussed version of suicide. It's a version of suicide people don't really talk about. And I think the reason they don't talk about it is because it's a version of suicide that a person who doesn't have a suicidal ideation could see themselves touching, but for a circumstance. Because when you're drinking up to a certain point, you are very aware of the danger. You're aware that you're going to you're aware when the buzz comes in, and you're aware when you're drunk. You're not necessarily in complete control over continuing to drink or not, especially if you're, if you're really in it. Mm-hmm. But you are aware of the risks, especially when you wake up the next day and you go, what did I do?
Right.
You're aware. And so it is a thing where you're pretty sure that this could happen, and it's an option for how you're going to go. And it's because that's a rough one. That's really rough.
Well, and it's and you can only help someone so much, right? Yeah. I mean, like there is only so much that you can do for another person. You can't, it's not like if someone's choking and you can give them a Heimlich maneuver. It's not like that.
Yeah.
Like you cannot immediately say to them, hold on 1 second. Yes, Nathan, what's up? Okay, good night. I have say good night. Hang on.
No problem.
I'll see you in the morning. Okay. I'll come kiss you before bed. My little studio down here. So, and two, there's I don't know that it's so much. I don't want to call it a shame involved because I don't want to like speak ill of someone who's in that process. But
yeah.
But there's a certain part of it where they don't want to hear about it.
Yeah.
Like they don't want to hear what you have to say about it because they're not comfortable with it themselves.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting, especially as the more and more. Like when I got diagnosed with all the interesting stuff that's going on in my brain years ago, I got thinking about like, maybe this is something I want to pursue as a career down the road or what have you. And really that kind of forced mental health issues kind of the forefront of my head and just kind of shaped the way I was looking at the world. And like, and you see it out there where you are because, you have all these veterans moving to Colorado to get better mental health care and better medication regimens and stuff like that. My father did 2 tours as a sniper in Vietnam, and he was what they called shell shocked.
Yeah.
In the 80s and 90s before PTSD was a term, right?
Right.
And he passed. I mean, I was 22 when he passed away, but I remember like he just like the man couldn't do fireworks. Like he would have these terrible, like debilitating nightmares and like cold sweats and all this, shit like this that like nowadays would be treated. At the time, he was like, oh, this dude was just a vet. He was just a vet, period. That's it.
Yeah.
And all his friends were the same damn way. And they didn't have the resource, and we still don't have as good of resources as we could have for our veterans. But
definitely not.
I mean, at that time it was almost non-existent.
Yeah.
And that was the first.
It was a punchline. I mean, think about how many movies we saw where, there was the crazy veteran who went through the war and, duck and cover when they hear a popcorn machine. It's like,
right.
It was a punchline to the jokes. And, it's kind of funny. I mean, we're definitely a lot more sensitive to that now, especially as we discover the ways in which, just average people starting to raise their hand more often saying,
right.
Yeah, I think I'm having some trouble too. And I
right.
think I'm going to say something out loud about it. And we're all discovering, okay, yeah, I think we all have something going on.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. I think I think that's an excellent way to put it, getting people to raise their hand, because even to this day, we all have, whether it be societal stigmas or family stigmas, like in the same family I grew up in, like, oh, we don't go to therapy, or like we don't go to a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
Although, yeah, you're probably the one who should.
Yeah.
And, like, damn it, you should go to a psychiatrist.
Pry the caulk out of your tear ducts. Let's get something going.
And my wife's grandfather was a big theologian at Emory College in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And he always said, everybody needs therapy of various different kinds.
Yeah.
Maybe you need family therapy, or maybe you need individual therapy, or maybe you need, marital therapy or whatever. Hold on, there's another one. Hey, buddy. You go to bed and I'll be up in a minute, okay? See? Okay. All right. I love you. You go lay down with Mama. I'll be up in a minute. Okay? All right, love you. That's just a background so we don't have to see all the air ducts behind my head. Okay. All right. Sorry.
It's all
Where
right.
was I?
Therapy.
I don't remember.
Your grandfather, the theologian.
Yeah. My wife's grandfather. So just, everybody needs someone to talk to. Like, and that's the biggest problem. I do social media for a living nowadays, and I run like over 100 accounts, and it's like, and I love it. It's interesting, but at the same time, social media is just like tearing our psyches apart.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's just turning us into these, like, oh boy, I don't know.
Well, I think it's again another one of those things where it can be used for good. There's a lot of value in social media. It allows people to connect over long distances. It allows you to meet people all over the world. I think that the area where we might be getting into trouble, and maybe you can speak to this, is that we're doing more of that and less face-to-face.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They did that study with, years and years and years ago, showing that if babies are left unattended, they're well fed and everything like that, but they have no human contact, they'll die.
Right.
It's kind of silly to think that there's not at least some of that still in us as we get older.
No, I agree 100%. And I mean, I find it astounding, and I try never to like I'll have my phone with me, like when I'm at home, but like I have it in my pocket, or like I'll be streaming music to it or something like that.
Yeah. But
like I never have it out at the dinner table. Like when I go out to eat with my wife, or even when I go out to eat with my whole family, like the phone's never out, and you see like so many people just sitting there, not talking to each other.
Yeah.
And so that's one aspect of it. Like you said, like the lack of interpersonal communication, and the lack of, what did my son ask me this morning? He said, can we make a video of my Minecraft Lego thing? I said, sure. Why do you want to make a video? He said, to put it on YouTube. I said, why do you want to put it on YouTube? He said, so that people can watch it. I thought, oh no.
It starts.
It started.
Yeah.
And then two, there's the whole other element of it where we're, justifying what you're doing by your online engagement.
Yeah.
Right. Now, from a business perspective, it's one thing.
Yeah.
You're trying to sell a product. You're trying to do this or that. You're trying to have revenue and have cost effectiveness. That I get.
Yep.
That there's a place for. But when you're judging your personal human equivalent as to, whether someone likes or comments on your photo, or, we have these horrible things where people are getting bullied online.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because think about it. Like, Coke can put up an ad and everybody says, Coke sucks, and a handful of people like it and some people don't. Coke doesn't care.
No.
But, if you put up a picture of yourself in a Coke t-shirt and someone's like, that's an ugly person, that t-shirt's too big for you. You look like garbage.
Right.
Go home. Like, Pepsi's better. You suck. Like, it almost feels like, they're not attacking a brand. They're not attacking a thing you did. It feels like they're attacking you. And in some cases, they really are attacking you. It's very personal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, bullying is bad enough in person. Like bullying sucks as it is when you're like face to face with someone, and we've all gotten it for various reasons,
Sure.
I use my wife as a reference. She got bullied for being too skinny in school. I got bullied for being too fat. I mean, they'll bully you for anything. It doesn't matter.
Completely.
Like, people just pick on you for whatever. But like, it's bad enough in person.
Yeah.
Right. But when it's online, I think when you get bullied online, like, you see something on your phone, right?
Yeah.
You see this bullying thing come through, and then you're like stuck there to like cycle, like, and kind of fester in this, like, and you keep going back to it.
Yeah.
You can keep going back to that comment, right? And say, oh man, like, you get bullied in the schoolyard, you go home, for the day, and hopefully you have a nice, healthy, encouraging home to go home to, and it's different.
Yeah.
Right. At least if you're going to be bullied the next day at school, at least hopefully you have, a little respite from it.
Right.
But if that comment is there and you can go back to it anytime you want. Yeah. That's when things get dicey.
Well, and there's two other aspects to that too. The one being, you're by yourself. It's weirdly lonely, to get bullied through your phone. The device that you count on for your entertainment, your news, and your connection to the world. We've tied it all into this, and now this thing has suddenly attacked you, and you're by yourself. You're completely by yourself. It's and there's no way to see where the assailant's going to come from, because the assailant's with you all the time, waiting for you in your pocket. Is it going to happen again? Is it going to happen again? And then the other piece of that is everybody's gotten a text that they read the text in the tone they choose to hear it in.
Absolutely.
And so
100%.
You're almost kind of beating yourself up, like worse than they were at that point. Whereas in person, I don't know, like, you could see the person walk away. You could hear their tone of voice. It was almost like the impact was shorter, like a punch versus 1,000 tiny pokes wherever you go.
Right.
Yeah, that's wild.
Well, and you're right. You could read something like exactly what you just said take it one way, and the person calls you 5 minutes later, and that's not at all what they meant. That happens all the time in business. Why is this guy being such a jerk, man? What the hell? And then you email him back, and he's like, no, man, I didn't mean anything by it. Like, okay, all right, whatever, fine, sorry.
Yeah, I tend to text swiftly and curtly, and so my friends definitely are always like, what did you mean by this?
Yeah, yeah.
I meant okay.
Right.
I just wrote you a paragraph and you just wrote okay. Yeah, I read it.
Yeah, I read it. We're good, man. We're good. And two, the whole other, and this is a multifaceted thing that we've just kind of stumbled upon without the foresight of thinking what it would do to our psyches, because then the whole other thing to think about is people can be a lot better, are a lot braver they have a lot more cojones to be a bully when they're behind a screen or behind a phone.
Oh, easy. Yeah. Than
standing up to someone's face. That's a whole other schoolyard to play in, right?
Yeah.
So we've kind of in the past, I don't know exactly when the first smartphone came around, let's say 15 years ago, 10 years ago, what have you.
Yeah.
In the past 10 years, we've stumbled upon this like psychological nightmare, basically. And there's no end to it. I mean, like short of like the singularity coming and like just the robots destroying us all. Like it's not like we're all as humanity going to say, you know what, let's go back to the rotary phone. That's never going to happen. Right.
Yeah.
Like, we're not going to go backwards.
We are the part in history that the future is going to look back at and say, "Can you believe these jackasses?"
I know. Can you believe we did that? I mean, hell, we have Elon Musk, who I think is a genius, by the way, but like has the whole Neuralink thing where he's implanting chips into your brain to weave in with your synapses and stuff like that. Like it's just going to keep getting worse.
Yeah, it is. It's just going to make it so we go right back to being able to be bored and uninterested without phones.
Right.
We'll just have the chip in our head.
Right.
Just sitting there making a face, nothing in your hands.
Yeah. Well, think about it. Think about it like this. Like when you get home from, like, I'll use this example for myself, and you can probably relate. When you get home from a gig, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Your ears are ringing a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Like your family's asleep. You kind of just want to chill out. What do? You probably I sit on the couch with my dog, have a beer or so.
Yep.
And I don't put on Netflix.
Yeah.
You have thousands of options, but you can't pick a damn one. You just watch the same thing. I'll watch The Hangover for the 50th time because I can't pick a movie. Like how ridiculous! Like
choice paralysis.
Absolutely, 100%. How that's just the silliest thing. Like if you were, a kid in the 90s, like walking through a Blockbuster and someone said, I have thousands of movies at my disposal and I can't even begin to pick one. Can you imagine? These kids would be like, man, that sounds stupid to me.
Yeah. Yeah, but that was there was something that was sort of formative about that. It was an interesting time. I think it's pretty wonderful to, be a day walker in this time, like be able to say, I remember Blockbuster Video, but also say, I now have, this amazing technology. And
like, I remember
Netflix
it, but I don't miss it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You kind of know what you're missing, but in a way, it almost helps, to keep you sort of mindful, and to bring it back around and tie it together. It actually is that same sort of thought process of being able to recognize something from your past and reconcile it with where you are now and who you are as a human being. It's the exact same kind of process with your suicidal ideation, because if you're a person that knows that you have that and you remember when it was more of a struggle to figure out what it was and how to maintain a life without it, especially as a teenager, when there's so many other things going on. and
Right.
everything is so important. And then as an adult, you've got to make some decisions on how you're going to manage things. How serious is it? What are you going to do? And to be able to remember that you lived through all of that and you're still here now, you should be able to learn something from all of that.
Right. Right. I agree. And also, you know, to put ourselves kind of in that mindset of like, you know, whether you have kids or not, and the younger generation in this era, like, you only post happy, scrappy stuff online, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like not everybody looks good all the time.
Right.
You know, not everybody has a great day all the time, but you're not going to post like, man, I feel like shit today.
Right.
Generally, I mean, some people do. I mean, but generally, you know, that because that doesn't get engagement, that doesn't get likes, and blah, 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 all that shit.
No, but you know what it does? It gets people worried.
It gets people worried.
The moment you're a little too real, people are so used to seeing. You know, it's an unspoken social contract. People are used to seeing the version of yourself that you put forward. And the moment you say anything that's down or negative, if it was a conversation in real life, you'd be able to say, yeah, I don't know. I'm just not feeling it today. Things are rough and whatever. But, you know, there's some other things going on. I'm working through it. So how was your day at work? It would be that kind of conversation. But when you put it out online, I'm not feeling it today. Just nothing's going right. I think I'll try again tomorrow. It's like, are you okay? What's going on?
Yeah.
What's happening?
Yeah.
Like, it's just chaos because people are like, yeah, I don't know if I signed up for this kind of reality. Right.
And you're like, yeah. And then things get awkward.
Yeah. You're taking this out of context. Like everybody has a bad day. You know,
Absolutely.
I'm not going to kill myself just because I'm thinking about killing myself.
Right. Yeah, it's an interesting. Like I said, I'm fascinated by it. Like I can kind of like step out of my own brain and be like, I'm fascinated by that concept of the ideation.
Yeah,
like the concept of it just like fascinates me. And like I said, I think having found a really good doctor recently in the past decade, you know, who put almost a title on it and reminded me that like it is a real thing.
Yeah.
You're not this just like doomsday, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
However you want to put it. But like it's a real thing. It can be, you know, it can be managed. We can, you know, and you probably know, I mean, like I've been through a huge, you know, it's a process.
Yes.
Figuring out what works and what doesn't. You know, you're not going to like, it's not going to be one day you're going to, you know, start taking something and a medication of some sort and you're fixed right away. And, you know, it
doesn't work that way.
In fact, sometimes it can get worse, which is a whole other, I mean, that's a whole other, we can do a whole other episode about that. But
have you been through a couple of cocktails of medication?
I've been through a few. I was originally put on like a horse dose of Klonopin, which did not bode well for anybody. Like I'm 6'5", 300 pounds. Like, and they would put me on like, I think as much as you could put somebody on. Like, and did
the cab come with a shovel?
It did come with a shovel and like a beer bong, which was odd. And so that was before I found this psychiatrist who I've been with now for about a decade. And when I went to him and took him the stuff that I was on after I had a particularly, say close incident with the ideation. I mean, I didn't act on anything, but I was getting much closer to thinking about it.
Yeah.
And I went in and he said, dude, like, and I was working like 80 hours. I was just working my butt to the bone, making poor choices about things. And, you know, he said, dude, like, you're on enough to put a horse down. Like, he's like, why are you on this, man? I said, I don't know. My family doctor told me to take it. What are you on? Like, he's like, oh God, okay, here we go. So yeah, so that obviously didn't work, but yeah. So I think I've been on the same stuff now for about 5 years, and it's pretty solid. You know, again, knowing that there's, you know, good days and bad days, and I still have stressful, you know, triggers and whatnot, and I find that when I still get it when I see people who have like committed suicide themselves. That still kind of hits me like a ton of bricks, you know?
Yeah, that hits me hard every time too. Like even people that I'm not like, you know, if they're public people, but I didn't really know them, you know, didn't know their work even. Like when Kate Spade died, there was something weird about that just, it just broke my heart.
Or you know, like Anthony Bourdain, or in the past 2 weeks, I've had two people, both from back home in Pennsylvania. One was this girl's son who was 18, killed himself, and another was this girl's brother who was a veteran, struggled with PTSD and addiction, and killed himself, all within a week of each other. And you know, I didn't know, I've never met either of those people. I mean, it's kind of third or fourth degree of separation, what have you, but still at the same time, it kind of hits you in your guts a little bit. You're like, oh,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, especially if you've been a person with a suicidal ideation, you can really empathize with somebody who's had those feelings, and it gets a little scary because, you know, like you said, some days it's closer than others. But the days when it's close, it can be terrifying because you're like, it's just how many more notches away before that's me. Right. Can I survive myself? Because
like how close does this have to get?
Yeah. It's a rough one. But with your particular, let's say, brand of suicidal ideation, is that something that, like, are you able to have those thoughts come into your head at random and still just go about your day like nothing happened? Or do they still affect you?
They still stick to me a little bit, you know? I mean, I don't think they'll like ruin my day. I think I get more of like the self-destructive side of it. Yeah? You know, like I feel like I'm a lot more self-destructive than I need to be. Like, but no, they certainly do. I mean, like I use that phrase like it's just something you can't shake off of you right away. You know, like because you get that it's a passing thought, but at the same time it kind of goes past you. But it's like it kind of splashed some crap on you. Yeah. Like, yeah.
Well, and you see it often enough. I mean, that's the you know, the fun part about the ideation versus just you know, say like a normal suicidal thought, like if there is such a thing, is usually triggered by some sort of external stimulus or event, you know, that makes you feel as if the bottom is dropped out and things are hopeless. But with the ideation, it's just completely random. It just pops in. It's like your brain just fills in a weird blank. You know, like when, you know, I used to tell people that it's like, you know, I wake up in the morning and it's like, you know, I could brush my teeth or I could kill myself. I'm going to brush my teeth, you know, or I could make a cup of coffee or I could kill myself. I guess I'll make a cup of coffee. I mean, it just comes in, you know, the waiting for the train. Like, I wonder how hard that train hits. Like it just comes in at random, and it's one of those things. But, you know, now for me, mostly because I've lived with it as long as I have, for the most part, you know, it's like I'm going to teach unicorns basket weaving is just as realistic as, you know, I'm going to see what the front of this bus smells like. They're kind of in the same category, but there are definitely days where it's closer and it's scarier. And yeah, you're right. It's like it splashes something on you and you're just like, all right, I'm going to wear the suicide cologne today.
So yeah, like some days, and I like if you're I drive a lot, so I use this example a lot. Like you're driving, you're like, I could just like pop right, like
Yes.
one way or another, and just like, and like you just think, and how, but which is, it's a little bit scary because how easily that thought comes to your brain.
Yeah.
You're like, I could just like, I'm driving up this mountain, I could just right off.
I thought everybody thought like that. And then I would say something like that to someone and they'd look at me and go, no.
Right. What? Yeah.
Has that happened to you? Like, have you ever talked about this with people?
Absolutely. Yeah. And they're like, no, like, I don't, like you said, they're like, no, I don't really think like that. Or if you talk about it with people and they're like, oh my God, you too? I'm like, oh, good.
Yes.
Like, at least I talk to someone who gets it.
Yeah.
Like, and then that opens the door to me being like, hey, like, cause I will I will tell my story to anybody, if I think this, even if I don't think it's going to help them, if they ask me, I'm very like, transparent about it. Like,
yeah,
I have no shame in the fact that I'm on medication. I have no shame in the fact that like I might have to take stuff for my brain till the day I die. Like that's fine with me. Like I have no problems with it.
Yeah.
I have a really good therapist. I've recommended him to several people. And I'm more than happy to do so. I've made calls to him directly for friends of mine and been like, hey, like this guy can't get on your schedule. Can you work him in? Like, he really needs to see you. Like I have no shame in it whatsoever.
Well, and that's how it should be.
Right. But there's still we're in 2019. There's still such a stigma involved with it. I mean, like we have weed legal all over the place. You guys have shrooms legal. We should be able to like not have to worry about mental health being such a weird thing. And especially, like with what went down this weekend with all this horrible tragedies this weekend. And yes, there are gun law ramifications. Yes, there's so much that needs to be done on that side of it. Absolutely. Yeah. I do not disagree with that at all, ever. However, to say that it is not also a mental health thing is not doing it justice. Yeah.
I mean, because it does all kind of go hand in hand. Right. But I mean, not to get political or anything, but the very idea that, we're not really interested in talking about guns, but we are interested in talking about mental health when guns come up and pivoting to that. It always strikes me that, well, then why can't we at least start by passing a law that says if you have mental health problems, maybe you shouldn't have a bazooka. Right. Yeah. Because I know the kind of damage I could do with just a pair of scissors and some time.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm with you 100%. Yeah. And it's always like, part of me, I just like to scroll through. Now, again, like when I'm at work, I have like 3 monitors. I have like 18,000 tabs open. I'm monitoring all this stuff. Yeah. But especially when stuff, after this past weekend, just going through so much of what people are talking about and just, it's just not, I mean, like I said, it's not a singular thing on either side of the issue, whether it be a gun thing or a mental health thing, but you have to put the two together, you know?
Yeah. And I would have to imagine that going through all of these various things, all of these posts and seeing this many people have conversations, and sometimes disrespectful and sometimes disjointed, I would imagine that after a while, that's going to wear on you.
Yeah. And you're just like, And then you have some people that are like, oh, well, your hopes and prayers are doing a lot. Like, but sometimes people don't know what to say.
Yeah, it's not nothing.
Like, let them not know what to say and send their best wishes, their best vibes, their best prayers, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. Like, not everyone knows exactly how to verbalize what they want to say in the aftermath of such a horrible thing.
I understand your anger, but this is not the place that deserves it. Right. Especially not if someone's trying to do something nice. But,
Right.
so as we're winding down here, let me ask you this. As far as everything that you've gone through and where you are now and how it's all working, do you feel like you've developed a set of tools that's working pretty well for you now?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this is one of them right here. So, no, but you have to have something, you have to have things to live for.
Yeah.
Right. And we all have our own skill sets. And that's another thing about modern society that I could go on a tangent with, but I won't. But that certain skill sets are far more important than others, right? Or far more valuable, not in terms of monetary, but certain are, like if you're a sports player, you're more valuable than someone who's like an exceptional plumber.
Yeah.
Like that's bull, like we all have our own gifts that have been given to us by whatever creator you believe in.
Yeah.
And so we're all good at something. We might not know it. Might not know what that thing is, or we might be good at, more than one thing, and we have to figure out what to focus on at any given time. But like, not even like just kind of knowing that inherently you're good at something, and that you can be purposeful in day-to-day human existence.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I've come to learn, and looking back, I'm 39, like I said, I'm turned 40, and now that I keep cranking out all these children, life, like for example, like when you're 18 and like graduating high school or whatever, going to college, whatever you do, going to trade school or whatever, like what you think life is not at all what life is like. You know what I mean? Like it is not a fraction of what you think is important then is what's really important.
Yeah. Life knows how to throw you a curveball. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
But you got to be willing to run with that and find the purpose and the joy in where you are, and not lament where you could have been or whatever, because it's where you are right now, and the version of yourself that you are right now is the best version of you that has ever existed, and has the potential to be better tomorrow.
Right. And worrying about the past or worrying about the future are equally damaging.
Yes.
I think worrying about the past is more so.
Yeah.
Because what the heck are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
And now that's one thing I still struggle with quite a bit. I will be quite frank with you. That's one thing you gotta just get over. And I haven't really come that whole let go and let God thing. I still can't deal with that. I have no idea how. I don't even know how to like be in the same zip code as that concept. I have no idea.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of people who are farther along with me, and not just in their Christian beliefs, but in their spiritual beliefs and how they deal with that. They're much farther ahead than I am. Like, oh, you just gotta, just let it go. It's like, I have no idea what you just said.
It's a process.
I want to.
It takes a lot of time. I mean, the thing to do now with the version of yourself that you are now is recognize that you're letting go as well as you can today.
Right.
And maybe perhaps you'll get better at it tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, I think we as people, I think we're really hard on ourselves.
Yeah.
I think mentally we can be really, I think you can be really down on yourself too, and to try to mitigate that. I think that's part of that's the ideation that I experienced and that you probably experience. I think you tend to be harder on yourself than someone. I hate to use the word normal, but someone new normal might be.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
but I mean, like, if you're not your biggest advocate, who's gonna be? Right? That might sound a little cliche, but
the pasta still sticks to the wall on that one, though.
Right. So you have to like yourself first, and again, complete transparency. I struggle with that big time. There's stuff from my past that I'm still trying to get over. That whole well, I don't really like myself very much, and my wife, if that ever comes out of my wife out of my mouth, my wife's like, that's not a really attractive trait. You need to figure out she's like, because I like you very much. Like, I married you, we had kids together. Like, I like you very much. You're awesome. But the fact that you don't like yourself is a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, how do you unpack that? That's a big concept.
Yeah.
To kind of extrapolate and figure out, okay, well, not only why don't I like myself, but how do I like myself?
Yes.
I might be going off the rails a little bit, but are you hammering nails? Oh, great. I'll give a 4-year-old a hammer. Yeah, no.
What could go wrong?
That's true. Again, 4 boys. I should have one of those punch cards to the Minute Clinic. It's you never know when you might need it. But yeah. So I mean, I have a lot to say on the topic. Obviously, it's just something I think about a lot, and I wish more people thought about it. I think we could save a lot more people, and even whether we save them by saving their life or we save them from having a miserable existence, those are 2 different things, but equally important.
Absolutely.
So I'm always more than happy, and I probably have diarrhea of the mouth talking about it at times, as you've seen over the past hour. But I'm always more than happy to talk about it with someone. I always love when people ask me, like, "Hey, can I talk to you for a minute?" or open up, or if I'm on a drive with someone and say, "Hey, tell me about this or that," or I'm always more than happy to be like, "All right, what do you want to hear? Where do you want to start? Like, let's go."
Well, I think today you've probably saved a lot of people from a horrible commute.
Well, I hope so.
Thanks for talking to me.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Yeah, man.
This was a really good time. Aren't you glad you showed up for this? If you want to get more Josh, and I know you do, you can find everything he's got going on at his Facebook page or at his website, dichotomyllc.com. As for me, next week, that is August 31st, I will be playing my debut solo album, King Stick, under the name Beast 4 at 3 Kings in Denver. And that's all I got for this week. Remember to love and appreciate the people in your life because, quite frankly, they help make all of this worth living. And don't forget to take some emotional risks once in a while. And while you're at it, don't kill yourselves out there.